Hey everyone, how you doing today? Our newest expert series, we're bringing on Rylas Dana. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, doing great. Doing great.
One of the reasons I loved adding you to my expert series is as an estate attorney, a probate attorney, you get to see a lot. You get to kind of see both sides of life, right? You get to plan up front with people who think long term. You get to see multi-generational family money, and of course, as a probate attorney, right? We all face our inevitable mortality. And, these are things we have to think about when you're really thinking about estate planning. So, what I thought we would do today is we would highlight 5 traits of successful families, investors, whatever you want to call that. Because again, we all have 24 hours in the day. We all have, we all will leave this world at some point. We hope it's decades in the future, but it will happen. So, when you think about the successful clients, successful families, you know, what do you think are some of the traits that they have?
Yeah, so I love my job. I love what I do. It gives me the ability, like you said, to get to know all these families and people on a really detailed level, I guess intimate level, you could say, what all their assets are, who doesn't like whose spouse, and all of those things. So you get to see the family dynamics of a lot of different people. So building on our conversation last time we talked about the generational wealth, so what do those families look like? What are things in common that I see with those types of people? So, and then the first one, what was your first question to break this down?
Really, what we were thinking about, what are the successful traits of those families? And when we were kind of brainstorming this together, the first one that came out that you were talking about was they just do it, right? They execute, they move
Yeah.
forward. So
So
tell us about that.
yeah. So step one is just do it. So I love your new saying. It's a great day to make some money, right?
Yeah,
It's a great
yeah,
day to make some money. And it's having that positive attitude, that positive outlook on every day. It takes someone at some point to say, all right, it's a great time to make a plan for my future.
yeah,
It's a great time to plan for my legacy,
yeah.
right after I'm gone. So just getting started with it.
Yeah, it's funny. And that is, it's an important step. We're 20 years in this game. We did our estate plan probably at year 4 or year 5. And in context, that means I think we own 3 or 4 homes, but it was clear at that point that we had done our homework, we learned our market, we were finding deals, and we knew that this was going to be something we would do for decades. And if you do real estate investing, like I talk about, I teach for decades, you're going to end up owning a fair amount of stuff. So we did it, right? We had those conversations, and it's weird, dude. It's weird, right? You go to somebody you haven't met, and they kind of go, okay, so what happens when you die, right? Kind of simply said, right? And you're like, oh my God, right? At the time, our daughter was a teenager. Like, what happens, right? I traveled all over the world. What happens if a bad thing happened on a flight? Those.
Yeah.
It's a weird conversation. Then you go home, and then you have really uncomfortable conversations with your spouse about what's going on, and then you come back. Then you do your thing. You write it all up. Then you come. It's a weird dance for us. I think it was about 30 days to kind of hammer it all out. But for a decade and a half now, I've been so happy we had that, because it was the plan that just in case break this glass if something bad happened. I'm so happy we did it.
Yeah, it is weird, and I refer to that as facing your mortality,
Yeah.
right? Because you're looking and say, okay, what I'm gonna die,
Yep.
and what do I want to have happen after I die?
Yep.
And I've been there, doing my own plan. I know it's weird. Like after I had kids,
Yeah.
it took me a while to do my own plan. And this is what I was working in a law firm, right? I was an attorney working in an estate planning law firm. Had
Yeah.
all the access to all the stuff, and but it's just making those decisions, right? It's kind
Yep.
of um, taking the time, I guess just a little bit of time, having those uncomfortable
Yeah.
conversations, those hard conversations, and then you don't have to do it again, right? Then you
Yes.
don't have to keep having this worry come up. That's the value you're speaking of. You're glad you did it
Yes.
because since you went through that process, because of that, in the middle of the night you can't sleep or something, whatever, if something comes up, your family is protected.
Yeah.
You know that you did that plan, and because of that, your family is going to be protected. From the California probate, we
Yeah.
touched on that a little bit in one of our conversations as well. But owning real estate, yeah, California probate is a mess. Very time consuming, very expensive.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I
um,
really do think of it as that break after I was done. I don't, I wish I could tell you I was evolved enough to think about this when I was doing the process. I wasn't. But once it was done, we signed, we kept our copy, the law office kept their copy. I do think of it as that break from glass, right? If you're ever in a commercial space, it says, pull this in case of emergency. That's exactly how and I'm glad it's there. And I'm glad it's in glass, right? Because it's not meant to be pulled ever, but just in case. And again, I think it is back to that. There's never a perfect plan, right? Facing a mortality means you got to make tough choices today, and you got to face. There's never a perfect plan. Don't do nothing, because if you don't, that is a plan.
right. So back to traits of these successful families that have been successful in passing generational wealth.
Hmm.
A common trait that I see is they're good planners. So someone had the foresight to create it, and then each generation realizes that they um, they need to continue with this. So once someone receives the benefit from someone, they go, wow, that was really cool. I got that inheritance from my grandparents, help do this and that.
Yeah,
I want to turn around and do the same thing for my grandkids.
that's awesome.
So so it just continuing to plan, I would say, in especially with larger estates, there becomes more options,
Hmm.
because you want to keep money in the trust, like the dynasty trust that I talked about. But within those dynasty trusts, there still is a lot of options. There's things where you can, decide how it's going to be used for the kids. So one of the comments on our video last week, I didn't get a chance to answer it or I think I did in the comments, but they asked if you can protect it from in-laws, from
Mm,
their kids' spouses. Is there a way to protect the inheritance from the kids' spouses?
hmm.
And that's usually built into the plans as well, right? They have ways to keep it in the family.
Right.
So so I'd say the planning, one is going, I'm just one part of that, the attorney, one
Sure.
seeing the attorney every few years, making sure the plan's done. But I would say a bigger piece is just understanding what they have as a family. Just understanding that, hey, look, we have a little bit more than the usual, or there's something here for you
Hmm.
that provides a benefit for you, but it does take some maintenance. There is a little bit of work to it. Your tax return may look a little bit different, because of these different trusts. There's a little bit of extra reporting and some requirements, but by going through that time and that expense, there is some maintenance to that stuff. It is preserving things for the future,
Yeah.
for the next generations.
Yeah, the other thing, kind of number three we talked about, again, people come in just like we did, right? We did this year 4, year 5, because we saw a long-term vision. When you look at these families or the individuals that ultimately build up these larger estates over decades, um, is it fair to say that those individuals have a focus on investing versus consumption or spending? Do you see that trait?
Yeah, investing. And so last week we talked about, one way that people are rich is they just have it. Another way is real estate, I would say. The
Right?
reason I became interested in real estate is as I'm looking at a lot of these successful families, that is a very common trait that usually there was some real estate in the portfolio or some type of stock from a family business or something like that. But yeah, usually real estate. Most often, real estate is a good way to um, to shift value.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
guys,
go ahead.
I'd say we talked about on the wholesale hotline, your show with Pace. You
Yeah.
guys hit depreciation was a topic. So there's so many tax advantages, to real estate. While you're acquiring wealth, but also in passing it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, real estate is that thing, and it's probably because of the circle I'm in. But the people that I've seen become self-made millionaires, right? Self-made, nobody gave 'em a dime. Uh, Disproportionate amount of them have done it with real estate. I have a few people in my circle who had good wins in tech companies that are worth some money today. But that's
That,
like
that
lotto money, right? It's crazy. So real estate's the way for most people.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. Real estate's the way for most people. The other thing that I see is tech companies or people in a startup where they have stock in a startup company.
Yeah, pretty
They
crazy.
they do well that way.
Yeah, so let's go on to trait number 4. This is a big one for me. It's actually an anchor of my course, as you know, as a member of my course, and that is focus. We are in a world where we are inundated by options. And if you're going to build wealth, in my opinion, you need to focus, and the more focus, the better. If you say you're just going to do it in real estate, that's too broad, because you can wholesale, you could flip, you could do land, you can do multifamily, you can do trailer parks, you can do self storage, you can do data centers. No, I have a full-time job on the side. I'm going to build this real estate portfolio. It's going to be single family homes in this area of this return. So I believe focus is key. But again, you see lots of families. I'm not sure if that's just my internal bias, or do you see that as well?
I would agree with you. People that focus on an area tend to do better than people, kind of all over the place. If they stay focused on one thing long enough, focus on the right thing, tends to pay out
Yeah.
versus, moving their money every time there's something hot and new or
Yeah. Yeah. Changing focus is quickly changing focus. You never become an expert. You never become, you never get a return on your time. That's what I really call it, right? Return on time, right? You're investing, investing, investing. You're almost an expert. You're almost ready. And then you go over here and you start at zero. And then you go over here and you start at zero. Folks, return on time. Time is the only thing we can't get back. If you lost all your money, you could get it back. You don't get your time back. Once you punch that day on February 8th, 2021 doesn't come back. It's gone forever. Got to get return on time. And that really goes to the last trait we talked about is they think long term.
yeah, think long term. So it's kind of weird addressing your mortality. I want to they think there's no perfect plan, or they want to get the perfect plan before they get started, or they don't like the results. But and then investing the money now. I get the question a lot. People say, when do I have to do this by?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, before it's too late. So um, if you're trying to spend the least amount of money on your estate plan, if you want to gamble until the end, that's possible. But again, if more complex estates, you're missing opportunities. I got a text over the weekend from one of my attorney friends, asking if I know a mobile notary in Flagstaff, Arizona. Is one of his friends. Um, he replied later and said he's got one of his friend's parents is dying in the hospital and they need to sign their trust.
Oh, wow.
I'm kind of like, it's a little too late.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I get
Kind of last
calls
minute.
all the time. Yeah, and on the hospital deathbed, it's too late. Because even if you can get a notary in there and get someone in there to sign it, I don't know how. If one kid can test what's in there, it's probably not going to be valid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great. So again, folks, if you're in Arizona or California, you want to have these conversations with someone I trust and someone who helps the channel, how do you want them to reach out to you, Rylas?
So my website is danalegalhelp.com. They can reach out there, find our phone number, text us that way,
Very cool.
or email us. Yeah, we have a text number on there as well on the website.
Yep. Do yourself a favor, folks. He is willing to give you a discount on services to have those conversations. You must mention you watch either Michael Zuber or One Rental at a Time. They will accept both. Rylas, any closing topic or closing thoughts on this topic of successful families?
I guess just the value, that you get from the planning. It's nice to hear you bring that up. And I think people just need to realize that, it's something that, yeah, it's a little weird, but by going through that, not just your future family is going to get it later. You're going to receive some comfort right now. You're going to get some value knowing that they're protected. So
Yeah. And
just gonna leave it
again,
on that.
yeah. And again, for me, folks, it was weird, right? Kind of step one is you just realize you should do this. That I felt empowered to do that. Then you sit across the table from an estate attorney. It gets uncomfortable for a minute. Then you go home, it gets uncomfortable again. Then you return to the state attorney. You've now have this emergency plan just in case, and you feel awesome. You know it's there. There's a plan for an unfortunate event. So I strongly recommend folks who are in the real estate business, adding assets as they go forward, to do this earlier rather than later. The end, being uncomfortable in the short term is well worth the decades of just in case I've had. So reach out to Rylas. And again, what's the website?
It's danalegalhelp.com. So DANA, danalegalhelp.com.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Glad to be here.